On December 17, 2024, in the bustling streets of a Vietnamese city, a rather bizarre and oddly humorous situation unfolded involving a pregnant woman, her disgruntled boyfriend, and a group of confused, yet thoroughly professional police officers. What started as a heated argument over an affair, yes, you read that right, an affair, quickly escalated into a full-on confrontation with a side of comedy that could easily be mistaken for a scene out of a slapstick movie. Picture this, a couple in the middle of a dramatic showdown, fueled by the kind of emotions that could only be born from infidelity. Add a dash of pregnancy hormones to the mix, and you've got yourself the perfect recipe for chaos. As if the already tangled web of drama wasn't enough, here come the police, because, of course, what could possibly make this mess any more entertaining? Seriously, who in their right mind would willingly wade into such a hot mess? I mean, this wasn't just any typical Tuesday afternoon for the officers. It was like a reality TV show gone rogue, where every decision was questionable and every character was operating on their own set of rules. The officers, bless their hearts, pulled up with all the confidence of someone stepping onto a battlefield, ready to restore order. At least, that's what they told themselves as they trudged into the chaos. But as they assessed the situation, you could practically hear the collective groan from their souls. This wasn't just a simple domestic dispute. No, this was a full-blown circus, and they were about to be the unsuspecting clowns in the center ring. The woman, now a mix of fury and disbelief, was holding her ground like a contestant on a game show, and her partner, well, he seemed more interested in explaining himself than facing the storm he had so carefully created. And somewhere in the background, you could almost imagine the universe throwing its hands up in exasperation, wondering how it ended up in the middle of this unscripted, off-the-rails spectacle. The officers, now playing catch-up, tried their best to look professional, but deep down, they knew this wasn't going to end with a neat, tidy conclusion. This was a train wreck on wheels, and no amount of badges or authority could make it anything less. But then, the woman arrived, and oh boy, she wasn't about to make things easy. Imagine this scene, the police officers, standing there like seasoned diplomats, trying their best to keep the peace. They were calm, composed, professional, like they'd seen it all. But the pregnant woman? Well, let's just say she was a whole other story. She wasn't exactly playing by anyone's rules. Picture her standing there, probably just as confused as the officers about the direction her life was taking, but instead of retreating into some kind of calm, reflective moment, she was more like a force of nature, unpredictable, fiery, and a little bit extra. It was almost like the universe had decided that this was her moment to shine, or at least, to dramatically upstage everyone else in the room. While the officers tried their best to keep things civil, you could practically see the smoke coming out of her ears. Every word that came out of her mouth was like a challenge, a new twist in this already twisted situation. It was as if she woke up that morning, took one look at her reflection, and thought, you know what? Today, I'm going to make these officers earn their paycheck. Because honestly, she wasn't doing them any favors. If anything, she was turning the whole thing into a sitcom, and the officers? They were just waiting for the next plot twist to drop. In a way, she was both the storm and the eye of it, holding the center of attention, adding chaos where there was supposed to be calm. It was clear that her life was a whirlwind right now, and she wasn't exactly thrilled with how the day was unfolding. But if there was one thing she wasn't going to do, it was make it easier for anyone else, especially not the ones trying to fix it. You could almost imagine the scene unfolding like an absurd game of tug-of-war. On one side, the officers, clutching their uniforms and their duty, straining to pull the situation into some semblance of order, while on the other side, the woman, dug in her heels, pulling with all her might to maintain her position, refusing to budge an inch. It was like a high-stakes game of human chess, only no one seemed to know the rules, and the pieces were all playing for themselves. At one point, you half expected her to pull out the ultimate trump card. Picture it, in a moment of tension, she suddenly whips out her pregnancy card like it's a golden ticket, holding it up high with the flair of a Broadway star about to deliver her final show-stopping line. "Hey, I'm carrying a future Nobel Prize winner in here," she might have quipped, eyes twinkling, So how about a little mercy for the mom-to-be, huh? It was as if the universe itself should step back in awe and let her waddle away with a free pass. Because, well, Nobel Prize winners start in the womb, right? This whole scene had the air of a courtroom drama, but with far fewer legal precedents. Imagine the judge, probably a cat in a judge's robe for comedic effect, listening intently to both sides, before throwing up his paws and saying, all right, the pregnancy wins. Case dismissed. If the situation had escalated just a little more, you could almost see it. The officers in their uniforms, helplessly holding up their hands as the woman waddled away, victoriously, like a queen of the absurd. At that point, the whole thing would have seemed less like law enforcement and more like the strangest episode of a reality show, Pregnancy, the ultimate card. It was one of those moments where you couldn't help but think, did the officers realize they were about to wade into what could be the next viral TikTok sensation, or were they secretly hoping this was all some sort of bad dream they'd wake up from in a minute, like a nightmare about paperwork and bad coffee? The scene unfolding before them was a blend of chaos, confusion, and borderline absurdity. On one side, you had a pregnant woman, clearly past the point of trying to keep her composure, shouting at her boyfriend about his other romantic exploits. On the other side, you had the officers, standing there like deer caught in headlights, unsure whether to defuse a domestic argument or start looking for a good viral hashtag. The whole situation had that "we're all going to laugh about this someday, but not today" vibe. And let's be honest, no one, absolutely no one, seemed to have a clear strategy for putting an end to the madness. Were they going to talk it out? Handcuff someone? Start a TikTok dance? Who knew? It was the kind of drama where everyone's looking around, hoping someone else knows what to do, but deep down, knowing this was going to escalate in ways no one saw coming. But, of course, things didn't exactly go according to plan. If life were a movie, this one would be a comedy, and boy, was it a real slapstick performance. The more the officers probed with their questions, the more the woman seemed to lean into the role of a diva who thought she was auditioning for a primetime reality show. Every response she gave had the energy of someone who was just one dramatic pause away from dropping a mic and storming off set. As the scene unfolded, her reactions became increasingly over the top, her arms flailing, her face contorting in expressions so exaggerated they could have been straight out of a soap opera. Forget resisting authority. This was high drama. She was performing for an imaginary audience, and it was as if she were waiting for a cameraman to pop out from behind a corner to yell, "Cut." That was perfect. You nailed it. Maybe in her mind, this was her big break, the moment she'd finally be discovered for a role in one of those reality TV shows where the plot twists come faster than the contestants can change their outfits. And, honestly, if there was one thing this whole absurd spectacle had in spades, it was pure, unadulterated entertainment. Who needed cable when you had this level of unintentional comedy unfolding in real time? It's almost as if she thought the entire fiasco was some kind of stage production, and every police officer asking her questions was simply another supporting character in her personal soap opera. Picture this, a woman, hormones running wild, dramatically unraveling the tragic tale of her boyfriend's infidelity, all while a squad of officers stood in the background, blinking in utter disbelief. If there were any undercover detectives in the mix, they probably never imagined they'd find themselves standing around, holding pens, trying to take notes on what was essentially a one-woman show. This wasn't your average domestic dispute or standard police investigation. Oh no, it was like a comedy sketch gone completely off the rails, complete with a femme fatale, a scandalous cheater who couldn't keep his lies straight, and a group of officers who were, honestly, in way over their heads. They likely felt like they'd accidentally stumbled onto the set of a sitcom, caught in a farcical twist they never signed up for. The plot. Ridiculous. The execution. Over the top. The result. A moment no one involved would ever forget, a reminder that sometimes real-life drama outshines anything scripted. Who could have predicted that in the middle of a regular shift, these officers would get front-row seats to such a chaotic spectacle? In this bizarre corner of the world, it almost felt like the universe had decided it was time for a comedy special, except the joke was entirely on everyone involved. Imagine, A pregnant woman already struggling with the emotional roller coaster of her boyfriend's extracurricular activities, which, let's be honest, were probably more exciting than the actual relationship, who then gets into a fiery argument. Her hormones were already doing somersaults, and then, just to top it all off, things take a turn for the ridiculous. Enter the police. Yes, the boys in blue, strolling in like an ill-timed cameo in a sitcom, adding a whole new layer of absurdity to an already out-of-control situation. By now, it's less of a confrontation and more of a full-blown farce. The tension, misplaced. The misunderstandings, practically choreographed. It's as if the universe had a front-row seat, popcorn in hand, just waiting for the next awkward moment to unfold. Maybe it was trying to teach them a lesson, though it's hard to say what that lesson might be. Perhaps it was something like, never try to out-drama your own life, or maybe the universe was just bored and trying to squeeze as much chaos into one tiny moment as possible. Either way, the comedy of errors that followed could only be described as a cosmic joke, with each participant playing the punchline, whether they realized it or not. This was slapstick at its finest, a series of events so bizarre, you almost had to wonder if someone was pulling the strings from behind the scenes, giving the audience exactly what it wanted, a spectacle. The whole scene felt like it was straight out of a Hollywood script, except with one major difference. Instead of a seasoned actress delivering the performance of her life, it was a very pregnant woman, ready to make her grand entrance into the world of dramatic flair. Picture it, she was practically a walking soap opera. The tension in the air could have been cut with a butter knife, as she was already on the edge after a heated argument with her boyfriend. And, of course, the cherry on top was his little side project, a messy affair he somehow managed to get himself tangled in. But just when it seemed like the universe had thrown enough chaos her way, guess who shows up? The police. And if you think she was going to follow the usual yes, officer, no, officer routine, you clearly didn't know what kind of show you were watching. Instead, she cranked it up to 11, stepping into the role of a lifetime, with no fear of overacting. It wasn't just a scene, it was a full-on theatrical performance. There were all the dramatic flourishes, hand gestures, the high-pitched voice, the works. If there was an Oscar for Best Tantrum in a crime scene, she would have walked away with the trophy. Honestly, I half expected someone in the crowd to shout, "Bravo!" It was a spectacle, with popcorn on the side, just waiting for the next plot twist. There she stood, arms crossed defiantly in front of her chest, refusing to budge an inch as the officers, all business, politely, well, at least professionally, asked her to follow them into a room for questioning. It was as if they were offering her a free cup of coffee, and she was already eyeing the exit. But nope, she wasn't having it. No way, no how. To her, this wasn't your average cop shows up and asks questions scenario. It was her personal crime drama. This wasn't law enforcement, folks. This was a primetime TV special where she was the star, and those officers? They were just shady figures trying to lure her into the most bizarre late-night infomercial pitch known to mankind. You could almost hear her voice rising in pitch, a full-on dramatic protest, because why wouldn't it be? She was expecting some overly enthusiastic announcer to pop out from behind the curtains and yell, "But wait, there's more." Like, "Yes, officer, we get it. You're the slick, smooth-talking host trying to rope me into a limited-time-only deal, and guess what? You've got nothing on my crime-fighting instincts." It wasn't just a case of questioning. It was a full-blown, wild, outlandish plot twist that would have made any late-night infomercial proud. Just imagine. Here she was, the unassuming hero in her own twisted drama, and the officers? They were just hoping they didn't accidentally offer her a set of knives or a free set of Tupperware. Because at this point, anything could happen. Forget about trying to keep your cool or even exchange a single coherent sentence with the officers. This wasn't your average encounter with the law. Oh no, what we had here was a full-on, Oscar-worthy performance. Forget resisting arrest. This woman was practically auditioning for a role that would make Meryl Streep jealous. Every move she made, every dramatic pause she took, felt like it had been rehearsed to perfection. It wasn't just a meltdown, It was a masterclass in chaotic theatrics. You could almost hear the dramatic music swelling in the background as she threw herself into her role with such fervor. It was hard to believe it wasn't scripted. And the police. They were nothing more than hapless extras caught in the crossfire of her impromptu performance. They were trying to de-escalate a situation, but she was too busy delivering her lines, hands flailing, voice trembling with a kind of passion you only see in soap operas. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you couldn't help but think, is this all part of a grand, absurd scheme? Did they have a hidden camera crew set up to capture this spectacle for a viral video? It certainly had that feeling, like you were watching a reality show where nobody got the script in advance. But let's be real, this wasn't a routine police stop. This was a performance for the ages, a tragicomedy unfolding in real time, with an audience that could only gape in disbelief at the absurdity of it all. You almost wanted to pull up a seat and get some popcorn, because if this wasn't going to make it to a Netflix special, then what was? "I'm not going anywhere. No one's taking me to no room," she declares, her voice ringing out with the kind of defiance that could make a seasoned courtroom lawyer blush. She delivers her line like it's a blockbuster movie trailer, smooth, unwavering, with a dollop of righteous indignation that could cut through steel. You can almost hear the dramatic music swelling in the background as she stands there, hands on hips, chin held high, ready for her Oscar nomination. Seriously, if there was a gold medal for over-the-top drama, she'd be on the podium so fast, the competition wouldn't even have time to blink. Picture this. There she is, practicing her lines in front of a mirror, working on her perfect "don't mess with me" posture, rehearsing for an imaginary audience that's been dying to see her perform. It's almost as if she's forgotten, or maybe never realized, that this isn't a dramatic reading for a reality TV show. The police aren't here to discuss her latest love triangle or share tips on how to dodge traffic tickets. No, they've come to investigate an actual crime. But why let something like, "oh, I don't know," reality get in the way of a moment that screams, "I'm the star of this show"? Her delivery is impeccable, the kind of passion you'd expect from someone who's been rehearsing her lines all night. She acts as though the officers are there to audition for her, not the other way around. This whole scene could be the final act of a soap opera, one where the protagonist, drenched in melodrama, triumphantly faces down the forces of justice, all while completely missing the point of why they're there in the first place. But hey, who needs logic when you've got flair? Forget about the crime. It's her time to shine, after all. What's really going on inside her head, if you look closely enough, isn't so much the fact that there's been a criminal event unfolding in real time right in front of her. No, it's the much more pressing matter of the absolute inconvenience that comes with dealing with the police. Forget about the fact that she's probably up to her eyeballs in potential legal trouble. Forget the drama of the entire situation. Her only. Who needs to bother with the so-called bigger picture when you've got your constitutional right to resist, right? Why think about the baby's safety or the police doing their job to protect and serve when you can stand up for your rights? For her, it's not about ensuring a healthy birth or cooperating with the authorities for the greater good. No, it's all about flexing that sweet freedom muscle, no matter how absurd the situation might be. This is her personal high-stakes freedom fight, where logic and reason take a back seat to the almighty right to challenge the system, especially when that system is just trying to keep things from spiraling into chaos. Sure, there's a little baby involved here, but who's got time for priorities like cooperation or rationality? She's got a point to prove. Imagine the scene, a woman who's ready to throw down with anyone who dares step in her way. Not with her fists, well, sometimes with her fists, but with all the drama of a reality show star who's convinced the cameras are always rolling. Police. Just another plot twist in her personal saga of, "I'm not going down without a fight." It's almost like she's auditioning for a role in a reality TV series called The Adventures of Miss Freedom, one where she's the main character, and every random encounter with law enforcement is an episode filled with unpredictable turns. And then there's the irony. She's charging through this personal freedom crusade like a mama bear defending her cub, except, in this case, the cub is still in the womb. It's like she's fighting for her right to make a scene, all while missing the irony of possibly putting both her freedom and the baby in jeopardy. Talk about a comedy of errors. She's ready to pick a fight with the system, yet somehow forgets the most basic plot points: the baby, the cops, and the tiny detail of making it out of this unscathed. It's a tragicomedy in the making. In a scene that would make any American proud, if, of course, Americans were in the mood for something a little less heroic and a lot more entertaining, this woman effortlessly turned her confrontation with the law into a performance worthy of its own reality TV special. Picture it, the drama unfolding on a street corner, as if the universe itself had conspired to give us the perfect mix of tension and spectacle. With an audacity that could only be described as Olympic level, she stands her ground, hands on her hips like a prizefighter refusing to throw in the towel. This is no mere standoff. It's a masterclass in the art of not backing down, as she channels the kind of defiance that makes you think, this is the spirit of America, right here, minus the whole, criminal element. Her every movement exudes an exaggerated confidence, the kind that only comes from watching one too many courtroom dramas on TV. With each step she takes, you can almost hear the theme music swell in the background. The officers, perhaps hoping to avoid a confrontation worthy of the next viral clip, inch closer, their faces contorted in a mix of confusion and disbelief. In their eyes, they're no longer dealing with a simple public disturbance but are, in fact, facing off against a criminal mastermind. Or, more likely, someone who's been binge-watching one too many episodes of Law and Order. But no matter, she's not just refusing to cooperate. She's turning this whole encounter into an epic saga where the world is conspiring against her, and only she can see the truth. This, my friends, is what happens when the average citizen decides to throw down with authority, not with violence, but with sheer, unrelenting drama. The officers might have been trained to de-escalate situations, but I doubt they were ready for an Oscar-worthy performance in the middle of a street. As the officers cautiously advance, she executes a calculated, almost cinematic retreat. It's like watching a scene from a high-stakes drama unfold in real time. Step by step, she moves backward, deliberately, dramatically, each step slower and more exaggerated than the last, like she's auditioning for an Oscar in the category of Best Retreating Performance. You can almost hear the whispers of a behind-the-scenes crew member on the set, urging, "This is it, folks. Get this on camera. We've got ourselves a star." The tension mounts, not just because she's facing off with law enforcement, but because she's clearly playing her role to perfection, as if her very future hinges on securing the title of dramatic victim of the system. Every glance over her shoulder, every dramatic pause, is a calculated move to ensure her portrayal of a woman wronged by society is as convincing as possible. It's as though she's channeling every underdog story she's ever heard, turning the mundane into a theatrical masterpiece. If this were a TV show, you could almost hear the score building in the background, turning her carefully staged retreat into an unforgettable moment of pure, uncut drama. By now, the officers must have been standing there, scratching their heads, caught somewhere between disbelief and confusion. Were they dealing with a criminal mastermind? Or was this woman simply auditioning for the next season of the most dramatic exit? With the way she was carrying on, it was hard to tell if she was trying to dodge arrest or if she was just angling for the ultimate reality TV moment. Imagine her striding off in slow motion, dramatic music swelling in the background, while even the most hardened reality show veterans would wipe away a tear of envy. Seriously, it was like she had been rehearsing this exit for weeks, honing her craft to perfection. You almost expected her to break into a dramatic monologue or deliver a line so epic it would become a viral meme for years to come. Honestly, the whole scene had all the makings of a reality show finale, complete with ridiculous levels of over-the-top drama and that plot twist you know is coming, but you can't look away from because you just have to see how it unfolds. Was she really upset about the argument with her boyfriend, or was this just the perfect opportunity to steal the spotlight and secure her place as the new queen of reality TV? Who knows? But one thing was clear, she was giving the officers a show they'd never forget. The tension. It felt like it could be cut with a knife, except that knife was made of pure performance art. It was as though the line between real life and reality TV had completely blurred, and the officers were just collateral damage in the latest episode of a drama no one had signed up for. In a moment where everything could have potentially settled down, with just the right amount of wit in the air, she stood tall, looked everyone in the eye, and boldly declared, "There's nothing violent going on here." Her words, which seemed like the end of a long argument, actually signaled the beginning of the next explosion. You thought this was just a typical family argument, right? Something like squabbling over who's doing the dishes or who's tackling the kids' homework. But no, those things happen in the real world. This story, however, started with something much more complicated: her boyfriend's infidelity. But don't jump to conclusions. This isn't a story meant for mocking anyone. What makes this truly fascinating isn't the betrayal, the tears of jealousy, or the endless snarky remarks. No, the real story lies in the key. Yes, the key, a small, ordinary thing that everyone has, but here, it's the catalyst for a massive emotional storm. She's not just angry about the affair, she's livid because he forgot one crucial detail in her life, this key that she had invested so much love, effort, and time into. Turns out, her anger wasn't just about cheating, it was about her boyfriend disregarding what she saw as a symbol of control in their relationship, the key. Who would have thought that in a love spat, a simple key would become more powerful than the sharpest insults? Sometimes, the biggest problems in love aren't the grand issues, they're the little things, the details you think don't matter, but can blow everything up. In the world of fights like this, a key doesn't just unlock doors, it can also lock up trust. Oh, you heard that right. This wasn't just any key. This was the key. The key to her dignity, her self-respect, and the fragile thread holding their relationship together. Where was it? Well, tucked away somewhere far more intimate, in her boyfriend's pants. And trust me, this wasn't about a key. It was about everything that came with it. Instead of calmly approaching him like a normal person and asking for the key, she dove straight into full-on mom mode. Picture this, the kind of woman you see in the grocery store aisle taking on a 3-year-old with a death grip on the last box of cookies. She wasn't asking for the key. Oh no, she was wrestling it from him, like she was preparing for a showdown that would make WWE look like a tea party. "It's just the key, it's no big deal," she says, trying to reassure the officers who are probably wondering if this is a domestic dispute or a family squabble over the last slice of pizza. But no, she wasn't angry. Oh no, she was noble. "I'm fighting for a cause," she insisted, thinking this was some epic battle for justice. In her mind, she wasn't a scorned woman or a frustrated partner. No, she was a warrior, standing up for her honor, and nothing was going to stand in her way. It's just a shame that her fight for this absurd, nonsensical cause would ultimately lead to her making things worse. Here is the English translation of your text. But then, the undeniable evidence, like the bloodstains and the torn shirt, just piled on, turning the entire situation into a mess of confusion. It was like the universe itself decided to throw a curveball at everyone involved, crafting a joke so bizarre and twisted that no one could make heads or tails of it. The cops, who were probably expecting something straightforward like a domestic dispute over cold pizza, were now left scratching their heads and trying to piece this absurd puzzle together. Was this just a comedy of errors, a hilarious misunderstanding gone horribly, tragically wrong? Or had they somehow stumbled into a much darker scenario that no one could have predicted? Either way, the whole thing was so bizarre that it was hard not to chuckle. I mean, how often do you see a spat over something as trivial as a missing key turn into a full-on crime scene? It's like the plot of a slapstick comedy, where every little misstep just raises the stakes, only in this case, nobody's laughing, except maybe the guy with the ripped shirt, who was probably still wondering how he got dragged into this mess in the first place. What started as a simple "who took my keys" moment somehow morphed into an investigation worthy of a CSI episode, and the sheer absurdity of it all was impossible to ignore. The officers, dressed in their best serious cop outfits, couldn't help but look at each other like they were waiting for someone to shout, "Cut!" and reveal the whole thing was an elaborate prank. Because at this point, nothing about this situation made any sense, except the fact that it was so ridiculous, it had to be real. after being gently reminded of her constitutional right to remain silent, a phrase that, let's be honest, sounds like it was ripped straight from a gritty crime drama, and definitely carries more weight when it's coming from a uniformed officer than it does when you're actually standing there in the middle of an emotional meltdown. She finally gave in. In a moment that could almost be called reluctant clarity, she sighed and admitted, albeit in the most theatrical way possible, that maybe, just maybe, things had spiraled just a tad out of control. Of course, this was after a solid 10 minutes of backpedaling, denial, and an impressive array of facial expressions that could have earned her an Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in a minor scuffle. But true to form, this woman wasn't about to go down without a fight. Not in the courtroom of public opinion, anyway. No. She wasn't going to fall into the trap of fully owning up to the chaos she'd unleashed. Instead, she pulled off the classic move, a small, semi-apologetic concession that felt more like an afterthought than a real apology, wrapped up in an extravagant, exaggerated flourish of, "But it's not really my fault." You know, the kind of logic you'd expect from a Hollywood script where the protagonist's actions always have a way of somehow being excused by their undeniably charming and misunderstood nature. So, with a shrug and a roll of her eyes, she delivered the line with all the finesse of a drama queen at the peak of a soap opera, leaving everyone wondering how she managed to make the situation feel less like a legal matter and more like an episode of Real Housewives, Police Edition. It was almost as if fate itself had set up the perfect moment for her to take a deep breath, stand tall, and finally admit, "Yeah, I totally messed up. This whole thing is my fault." But nope, what did she do instead? She expertly delivered a disclaimer, as if she were auditioning for the role of Victim of the Year. "Well, yeah, things escalated a bit, but I never actually hit anyone. At least, not on purpose." Ah, the delicate art of weaseling out of responsibility. So graceful, so completely not the point. You could practically hear the collective eye rolls from an imaginary courtroom audience, all watching from the sidelines, eagerly awaiting her big moment of accountability. But instead of embracing her role in the circus, she danced around it, twirling like a defendant in a courtroom drama where the plot was so painfully obvious that even the janitor could tell what was going on. And there she was, the star of the show, too busy sidestepping the truth to even acknowledge the elephant in the room. It was like she had the chance to walk off stage with a standing ovation for owning up to her chaos, but instead, she pulled off the ultimate act of deflection, like a magician pulling a rabbit out of a hat, except the rabbit was truth, and it was nowhere to be found. It's a classic move, really. Just when you think she's about to face the music, she's busy changing the station to avoid hearing the song. Bravo, truly. Her attempt at deflection. Absolutely flawless, if you're judging it by how much comedy gold she managed to churn out in the process. Seriously, picture this. The whole situation was screaming guilty plea, with an extra side of impending courtroom drama, yet she came in hot with a response that would have made any lawyer wish they could add Master of Spinning Nonsense to their resume. "Sure, things got a bit out of hand, but I didn't really hit anyone. No need to cue the dramatic music just yet," she says, as if she were trying to ease the tension in a courtroom by casually dropping a punchline that made everyone in the room look around in disbelief. The way she said it was like watching a reality TV star trying to escape the consequences of their latest ridiculous stunt, like tossing a drink in someone's face or kicking down a door, only to follow it up with an overly rehearsed "oops, my bad," and a wide-eyed, innocent grin, without ever actually acknowledging, that she was the one who kicked the whole mess into motion. It was as if she crashed her car, and instead of owning up to the wreckage, she looked at the totaled vehicle, airbags deployed, police sirens blaring, and offered up a sincere-sounding, "Well, I didn't mean to." Adorable, really, but here's the thing. The car's in pieces, the air is thick with the smell of burnt rubber, and there are at least 3 officers standing around wondering how to even begin sorting out this chaos. But sure, let's pretend you were just a victim of some random outburst, because that's totally how it works when you're the one who's made a hot mess out of everything and are still trying to spin your version of events like some kind of misunderstood hero. At the end of the day, no matter how many disclaimers she threw into the mix, everyone in the room could see the situation for what it was, a hot, sizzling disaster with a side of denial. Ah, the classic "we've all been there" defense. A go-to that works like a charm in almost every scenario, right? Except, of course, when the police show up, not just to break up the fun, but to pull out their notepads and start scribbling down every word like they're preparing for the next season of True Crime Weekly. That's when the magic starts to fade faster than a bad reality TV show on a Sunday night. The crowd, who's probably still trying to process that they're witnessing this high-caliber drama, starts thinking, "Nice try, sweetheart, but no one's buying that story." And from that point on, it's like a live-action comedy of errors unfolding in real time. You've got drama, you've got denial, and of course, plenty of dodge tactics, all wrapped in a nice little bow of avoidance. It's like watching a masterclass in personal chaos, the kind of mess so refined and elaborate that even the writers of the longest-running soap operas would be sitting back in awe. Every move is calculated, every word a dodge, and yet, somehow, it all feels like a carefully orchestrated disaster. And as with any truly epic train wreck, the piece de resistance, the big, heartfelt confession at the end? Yeah, that was nowhere to be found. Because, let's be real here, nobody expected that. The only thing left to do was watch this train wreck unfold, popcorn in hand, and wait for the inevitable punchline that would never come. After a series of unbelievable events, from silly actions to thoughtless decisions, she finally faced the perfect outcome that couldn't be denied, being arrested for domestic assault and obstruction of justice. But here's the fun part. While everyone probably expected her to realize the craziness of her actions, she turned it into an opportunity to add more to her list of charges. That's right, you didn't hear wrong. Not only did she not regret anything, but she also performed so dramatically that even the police couldn't believe their eyes. You could say that her actions during the confrontation with the police could be likened to a chaotic masterpiece. To her, everything was an opportunity to showcase her creativity, from dodging the police's questions to turning a small struggle into a brilliant performance, as if she were starring in a Broadway show. In fact, if life were a stage, she was clearly writing the script and playing the lead role in a dark comedy, oblivious to the fact that she was part of a joke. Her decisions were like entering a competition called Who's the Weirdest? And, indeed, she didn't disappoint. Imagine witnessing a scene that even famous comedies would envy. She wasn't just an angry pregnant woman. She seemed like she was participating in a who can keep calm in the most stressful situation contest, and of course, she had no intention of playing the role of a contestant. In a sweaty, tear-streaked moment, there was no acceptance of the situation, just denial after denial, turning everything into a bizarre comedy. Here's the translation of the text. She could have just taken the easy way out, the reasonable and effective solution, maybe just a calm conversation, a couple of deep breaths, and a little bit of understanding. But no, that's not how this lady rolls. Instead, she decided that this situation needed extra drama. And not just any drama, but a full-blown spectacle worthy of the finest soap operas. Forget a simple family dispute, this was going to be an all-out show, complete with ludicrous moments, exaggerated reactions, and an audience of confused officers who had no idea what they were walking into. Maybe in her mind, this was the best solution, the only solution. After all, if you're going to make an entrance, why not do it with flair? Why settle for a quiet, boring resolution when you could have a full-throttle, over-the-top conclusion that leaves everyone questioning their life choices? Perfect, right? Because in her world, that's how you create the perfect ending. Who needs subtlety when you can have chaos? She didn't just fail to cooperate with the police. She actually turned it into a masterclass in the art of refusal, making saying no cooperation feel like an understatement. Each dismissive response, every odd movement of hers was like a performance in a comedy show, so much so that not only the rookie officers but even the veterans had to stop, look at each other with doubtful expressions, and wonder, where are we? Is this for real? If there were an award for turning a tense situation into an unexpected comedy, she would definitely win first place. In the officer's eyes, she was no longer just a passive woman in life, but the lead actress in a bizarre action movie, where everything, from the law to logic, could be bent to her will. Investigators, who were used to all kinds of difficult situations, now faced a completely new version of the law, where nothing was impossible, At least, not as long as she wanted it that way. And don't forget, she wasn't just a regular pregnant woman. She was a super creative one who could recycle any tough situation into an engaging script full of her own unique flair. To the police officers present, she was no longer someone who needed protection, but the star of the action movie they had to tip their hats to for her unlimited creativity. What started as a simple family argument quickly transformed into something straight out of a Hollywood blockbuster. Well, minus the multi-million-dollar budget and actual special effects. Picture this: a cozy, domestic quarrel about a lover's betrayal spirals into a chaotic spectacle that would have made even the most experienced screenwriters break a sweat. It all begins with a classic she said, drama, fueled by a love triangle, or maybe even a love square, if we're being honest. And suddenly, this seemingly mundane disagreement is overtaken by an impromptu police investigation. Enter the unlikeliest of heroines, a pregnant woman who's just living her life, possibly craving pickles and ice cream, when, out of nowhere, she finds herself wedged between a lovesick partner and his questionable romantic decisions, all while being caught in the middle of a police interrogation. One minute, she's locked in a heated argument about some extramarital shenanigans, and the next, she's face-to-face with a badge and a squad car parked right in her driveway. It's like the world's most dysfunctional soap opera, with zero glamour and no plot twists anyone could have predicted. You couldn't script this kind of stuff if you tried. Well, you could, but you'd need a hefty rewrite to make any sense of it. All the drama of a love triangle? Check. The tension of a police intervention? Check. And just to make things spicy, throw in the fact that our unsuspecting leading lady wasn't even trying to steal the show. She just wanted to survive the day with as little drama as possible. Yet, here she was, suddenly the star of a spectacle that none of her reality TV fantasies could have ever prepared her for. Talk about a plot twist that even Hollywood would have passed on. But wait, the plot thickens. If you thought this was where the story ends, you'd be sorely mistaken. Oh no, the universe isn't done with our protagonist just yet. In a twist that could only be described as life's hilarious attempt at fast-tracking someone straight to the courtroom, she suddenly finds herself facing the reality of a court appearance. Forget the traditional career paths, folks. She's now on a high-speed train to a future in law. Who would have thought that a petty argument over cheating could lead to a lucrative, albeit highly unexpected, career in the legal world? Now, let's be real for a second. Sure, she never saw herself as the future poster child for Law and Order, Local Edition, but here we are. No one dreams of flipping through dusty law books or waiting in endless lines at the courthouse, yet here she is, taking a crash course in courtroom drama and legal jargon, all thanks to one little spat over her boyfriend's extracurricular activities. Life, as it often does, has a funny way of pushing us into careers we never signed up for. One minute, you're just a regular person trying to sort out relationship drama, and the next, you're potentially signing up for a job that comes with a robe and a gavel. Maybe the legal system just got its newest recruit, and it wasn't even on the job market yet. Who needs a law degree when you've got first-hand experience in navigating chaos, right? And let's not forget the sheer irony here. She thought her biggest issue that day would be confronting her boyfriend about his infidelity, but nope, the universe had bigger plans, throwing her right into the deep end of legal proceedings. It's almost like a cosmic joke, delivered with impeccable timing. Who could have predicted that what started as a lover's quarrel would land her in a seat beside the very lawyers and judges she never thought she'd interact with? The lesson here is clear. Never underestimate how a bad relationship choice can inadvertently lead to a legal career. Maybe she's not just a witness in this drama. She might be the star of the show. If we were to look at this situation through the lens of humor, we'd have a front-row seat to a reality TV show that practically writes itself. Picture this woman, the unintended protagonist of a documentary titled The Accidental Criminal Mastermind. A true crime saga so wild, so packed with drama, you'd swear it was scripted, but no, this is the real deal. It's a tale where she juggles not only a complicated pregnancy but also a relationship that could rival the best soap operas in terms of sheer chaos, and, of course, a close encounter with the law. It's like she's starring in a live-action soap opera, except the stakes are higher, The plot twists are even more unpredictable, and, let's be real, she probably didn't expect any of this to be her big break. You could almost see this documentary being pitched to Hollywood. Picture this: a woman caught up in a whirlwind of her own making, expertly navigating a mess of legal issues, a volatile relationship, and the general chaos of life. Oh, and did we mention she's pregnant? This is cinematic gold. Honestly, in the world of Tinseltown, she'd probably snag an award for Best Performance in a police investigation while pregnant. The character arc is just too rich, too absurd to pass up. One minute she's dodging questions from the police, the next she's delivering a monologue that would make any Hollywood screenwriter jealous. It's a genre-bending masterpiece, part comedy, part thriller, all absurdity. We're talking an Oscar-worthy blend of chaos, charm, and unintentional comedy. Who wouldn't pay to watch that? And honestly, even if she doesn't win any major acting awards, there's always room for some sympathy points. After all, she's the star of one of the most absurd and entertaining chapters of her life. Expert in dramatic confrontations with law enforcement? Sounds like a skill to list on her resume. You've got to hand it to her. She's definitely memorable, and in a world where fame is often earned through bizarre, unpredictable events, she might have just stumbled into a career she never saw coming. Whether she likes it or not, she's found herself in a role that could only exist in the land of the absurd, and that, my friends, is something worth watching.